back. It's still Business Morning here on Channels Television. Let's head to the global space now with Will Ibon. Will, so yesterday, RCBN MPC held rates. We've heard news of a lot of cuts, but I think more interesting one at this time is the UK cut rate. And now the inflation is up.
Yes.
I wonder if there was a regret to that rate
Well,
cut.
I'm sure they will say maybe a little too soon, and right now they're probably not considering any cut anytime soon.
We know Ghana also experienced the same thing some months
definitely.
ago. They cut rates, and then the next month they had a jump in their inflation. So no wonder in Nigeria we're not in a hurry to cut rates. We're not.
Well, Ladi asked yesterday if I see the CBN cutting rate. I said no. I'd probably say a hold year because cutting rates is more like no. I don't think the CBN is going to.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
Nothing to show for that. But let's quick look at what the UK is saying. UK inflation jumped to 3.5% in April, its highest level in over a year, likely delaying for the Bank of England rate cuts. As I mentioned, the rise driven by the higher energy bills, council tax, and new payroll and vehicle duties exceeded analyst expectations. Now, core inflation also climbed to 3.8%. The bank recently cut rates to 4.25%, but its chief economist has since warned cuts may be coming too fast. Deutsche Bank now expects inflation to stay above 3% for the rest of the year before easing gradually in 2025. Still staying on the central bank, Sweden's central bank is keeping its monetary policy steady for now, calling it well-balanced. Deputy Governor Anna Sem says the Riksbank is waiting for more data before making any moves, especially on inflation and economic activity. She notes rising global uncertainty could weigh on Sweden's economy, though the impact on inflation remains unclear. The bank says it's ready to adjust rates if needed, but is staying cautious and data-driven for now. Let's move on now. The UK sportswear giant JD Sports says tariffs in the US could drive up prices and weaken demand. The retailer, which makes nearly 40% of its sales in the US, saw a 2% dip in the first quarter sales. It's already facing weaker demand for Nike products and tighter consumer spending. JD says it's diversifying suppliers to reduce tariff risks, but warns that higher prices may still hit consumer confidence. Despite short-term pressures, the company remains confident of delivering better returns over time. Etihad Airways posted a 30% jump in first quarter profit to 685 million dirhams. That's about $186 million. And this was driven by strong demand and better operational efficiency. Revenue rose 15% with passenger income up 16% to 5.5 billion dirhams thanks to more flights and an expanding network. Etihad CEO Antonio Laldo Neve says the company is proud to deliver a record-breaking quarter both in profitability and in guest satisfaction. Elon Musk says AI may hit a power crunch by mid-2026 as data center demand soars. Its startup xAI is building a gigawatt-scale facility in Memphis about the size of a U.S. nuclear plant. It warns electricity will become the next big bottleneck after chips and transformers. Google raised similar concerns in February, turning to nuclear options after renewables proved unstable. Musk says China's power expansion looks like a rocket, while the U.S. remains flat. xAI's use of gas turbines have sparked environmental concerns over Clean Energy Act violations. Utilities report strong data center demand, but Constellation Energy warns some projections may be overstated. Now let's see, President Trump has hit a roadblock on Capitol Hill after failing to win over key Republican lawmakers from high-tax blue states. At the center of the dispute is a SALT deduction, a contentious tax break for states and local taxes, with the SALT caucus standing firm. What does this mean for Trump's tax bill and GOP unity ahead of 2026? We are joined by Washington correspondent Maria Bird to break it down. Good morning, Maria. It's good to have you on the show.
Good morning.
Maria, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a SALT deduction and why is it such a politically explosive issue, especially for Republicans in the blue states?
Well, as we all know, the president came in campaigning for very specific items, and specifically, he spent quite a bit of time addressing the American people and promising the American people that there would be tax breaks. And not only tax breaks, but this meant more dollars in Americans' pockets. And so, because of that, when you look at this bill that he's been trying to put forth, and he went up the Capitol Hill on Tuesday, it's really about state and local taxes, as you mentioned. State and local taxes are a huge part of the economic fund base in the United States. So, states use these taxes to be able to ensure the efficient operations of the government. And so when you look at the SALT caucus and their focus on state and local taxes and this cap that has been put in place of $10,000 for deductions. As we all know, tax time in the US is a very busy, stressful time for many Americans. And so when you talk about removing the cap from $10,000 a year at this time for state and local tax deductions to $30,000 a year, that means a lot for Americans who are looking to add more dollars in their pocket. The challenge, though, that many lawmakers are expressing is the fact that there is still a deficit within the U.S. budget. And the concern is that tax cuts then allow for greater deepening of that hole that we oftentimes have in our budget. And so they don't see where they're able to ensure that we can have the money that's needed to operate the government, that we're able to we know that we've all been through some very strenuous economic times. Obviously, the government has taken a major hit trying to support individuals post COVID and through some of the other economic challenges that the U.S. has experienced. And so the deficit in the government's budget, I think, is the greatest concern for many lawmakers, which does not lean them to wanting to raise this tax cap by $20,000.
Yeah, it's quite a lot to consider there. 40,000 naira, $40,000 now. I'm thinking naira. It's $40,000 cap there. That's a lot. I'm sure a lot of lawmakers, especially the Republicans, aren't sitting too well with it. But how much room is there for a compromise before this bill stalls, say, completely?
Well, the president was hopeful to get this approved before the Memorial Day weekend. We are now at Wednesday. Memorial Day is Monday. So lawmakers really only have about a day and 2 days. Friday, typically, it's not a day where they do a lot of voting. And so, what can happen between today and tomorrow? I'm not sure. I think the president doesn't believe at this point that there is much that can be done. But as we've seen before, things can turn around very quickly in the U.S., especially this new administration. But that is the hope, is that it would have been approved before Memorial Day weekend. Now, once we get past the Memorial Day weekend and what happens next week, I'm not quite sure. But the plan was for it to be approved then because of all of the other pieces that went to this bill. This bill was really about balancing the budget, and obviously this tax cap challenge or component was added into that bill as well.
Okay, so let's just step back a bit. What are the broader implications of this, looking at economic aspects, especially for Trump going to 2026? What would this mean for Trump if this lingers and there's no way ahead? What do you see how do you see this impacting the economy and Trump's chances?
Well, we've got to get a balanced budget approved. So that's the number one challenge, is approving the budget. And so that's number one on the list. The tax cut issue is really going to impact his voter base. They were hopeful to see a raise in the tax in the cap for these taxes. They're obviously looking for tax breaks. The tax break would have phased out at incomes of around $400,000, and so individuals that were in that high net earning area would not be eligible for this tax cut. And so this is really addressing Americans that potentially could be seeing drastic challenges right now economically. But again, we also know this could also put a challenge to some of the programs that the government's able to put forth to address some of the greater challenges of those who might not even be in the realm of being able to take advantage of a tax cut of $30,000. And so it's a great challenge. We know that many blue states where they're trying to meet the needs of a vast group of individuals, not just the wealthy, but they're also trying to meet the needs of those individuals who are still dependent upon programming and dollars that will allow them, especially when you talk about times where we have seen drastic cuts in jobs. And so many programs that allow people to get back into the job market, upskill individuals, could be impacted if we're not able to obviously have the type of budget that allows for some of these programs to function within the government.
We hope it doesn't derail entirely the tax bill itself. But Trump told the SALT caucus to let it go. That's in his words. But they're still holding firm. How significant is this standoff between the GOP, within the GOP? And what does it tell us about the fractures in the party ahead into the next election cycle?
Well, as we know, the president has a lot of irons on the table at this time, and so when we talk about the challenges around tariffs, when you talk about obviously this tax piece, when you talk about balancing the budget, I mean, there's just so many components, and obviously we know he went in the door on day one very active with executive orders. We also still have immigration challenges that exist, so there's a lot of things that he's been working to address, and obviously the efficiencies within the government, which have led to many layoffs. And so there are individuals that are now out of work that need to be moved into other industries. And so there's a lot of efforts that he has to take into consideration. So when you mentioned, he said, let it go, some of that is trying to be strategic about where the priorities exist for the U.S. at this time, knowing that we are continuing to see slight inflation. Some of the reports, earnings reports coming out of various companies are not where he would quite want them to be. There still has not been solid tariff deals on the table. And so making sure that we can move forward with some solid tariff deals without much distraction. So there's just so many things that are currently within the framework of what he's trying to move forward, that this might be one that he's saying, if we're not going to get it done by Memorial Day, let's refocus.
Definitely, Trump and his group need to refocus. Thank you so much, Maria Bird, our correspondent in Washington. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So it appears to be like Trump is not having it, you know, is it dandy within the group when it comes to taxes? I think this is what divides them. That's what probably makes them different. Now they have differences. Now something that concerns their constituents, they're fighting for their constituency. They don't want, regardless of the fact that they want Trump in power, they don't want anything to affect their constituency. So
yeah,
I see
well,
this as
I guess, it's beyond politics, looking at
yes.
the welfare and the wishes of the people. That's what's happening with the GOP and all of that. And it's tax reform in Nigeria. It's tax reform in America,
yes.
because the government needs to raise revenue.
Definitely.
And of course, tax comes top on the list.
Of course.
All right, Will, that'll be later for you for Business Incorporated. And that's the much we can do on Business Morning today. Thank you so much for being a part of the program, and I do hope it was worth your time. At 1 p.m., Ladi Williams and Will Ibon will be back to take you around the world of business and economies around the world. That'll be also about 55 minutes, so you can join them. I'm Amy John McQuack. Do have a great day.